Hi, welcome to 10 Minute Violin. We're so glad to have you join us here today. I'm Miguel Ramirez, and this is the live stream training session for the 10-minute practice video titled Violin Preparatory Postures. I want to make sure everyone has a good understanding of our format here at 10 Minute Violin. First of all, I want to clarify that this session here is not the 10-minute practice video itself. This is the training session where we'll explain in detail how to best approach the material presented in our Violin Preparatory Postures 10-minute practice video. So it's important to watch this training session at least once before following along with the 10-minute practice video so you can really optimize your time spent with it. There will also be a question and answer time at the end of this training session for those of you who are tuning in live. And the separate 10-minute practice video will be available on our YouTube channel directly following this session. So an easy way to think about it is if you view this live stream training session as your lecture or your class, and the separate 10-minute practice video as your lab or your homework. And actually, I think today the 10-minute practice video will be available a little bit later in the day because I think a few finishing touches needed to be done to it. But it will be available later today, actually. So correction on that one. At this time, I'd normally like to introduce my brother and the co-host of 10-Minute Violin, John Ramirez. I think there was a couple little problems with the microphone. I don't know if his microphone's working, but if you want to...
It's not working, but hello, everyone.
So if you heard him, he said hi. I don't know if the microphone got that, but so he's here running the cameras and all that. So hopefully you get to see him again next week. Okay, in this training session, I will be showing you how to position your body to help support your violin effectively. So this will help your violin have the freedom to resonate and then also help your body be free to play with less restrictions. So we won't be using the instrument at all today, but please don't let that make you think that this information is any less important. The exercises today aren't particularly hard, but it's still very important to practice them every day so you can lay the foundation for the upcoming videos where we will be using the instrument. Finally, we hope this information will be valuable to you no matter what level you're on at the violin, and will also be helpful for those of you who are viola students. You can submit your questions in the chat at any time during the training session, and we'll get to as many as we can after we finish covering all the material. Since there's about 15 seconds of delay between broadcasting live in our studio and when you receive it at home, try to submit your questions before the end of the before the end of the AO turns section of the training, to make sure that we see them. And so finally, I'd like to say that it's great to be back with you. I know we had a few weeks in there where we had to evacuate because of the fires here. And so it's so great to be back and to keep sharing all this great information about the violin with you guys. So last few things before we dive into the material. Follow the links below if you'd like to book a private lesson with me or John. And if you find our content helpful, I'd like to remind you to hit to subscribe, hit the bell to be notified every time we release a new video, and like and share it with your friends. So the first exercise you'll find in this week's practice video is called Palpate Foot Arches. So when we think of foot arches, we might just think of one arch per foot. Did you know that there are actually 3 arches in each foot? To show you where those are, I'll pull up a diagram first. So we're going to have to switch over to this diagram here. Okay, and can I actually pull this a little bit, or is that?
Yeah, as long as you
okay?
Pull the wires off.
Okay. Readjusting here a little bit. Okay. So we have a diagram of the arches in the. Okay, got that window out of there. Okay, so the arches in the foot. So the most prominent arch is the one that we tend to think of most, and that's the one along the big toe side of each foot. and where the arch support is found in many shoes. And so this is called the medial longitudinal arch, and I'll show you right here. So that's where the medial longitudinal arch is. And I'm kind of not getting, I think we had to restart this thing, so I'm not getting a very good marking with
Just go several times.
Okay. So it's here along the big toe side, and you'll see if you're looking closely. And maybe we don't need me on the screen right now. I think it probably is just easier to just narrate here.
You're talking loud enough.
So this is, okay, so I have to talk loud enough so the microphone still gets me. This is the medial longitudinal arch. It's on the toe side of the foot, and that's the one that we're probably most familiar with, okay? But as you can see, there are other ones. On the other side, on the pinky side, there's the the lateral longitudinal arch. Lateral longitudinal arch. These are kind of a mouthful. So again, you see both feet there. So the third arch here is the one that goes across the toes, or not really across the toes, but in line with the toes. And that's called the transverse arch. Again, you can see it on the one that has the bones and the ones without the bones, the foot without the bones. And you'll see it here. Don't worry so much about this one here, but it's just showing you kind of how that transverse arch works with the bones that are connected to what eventually becomes the toes. And it's numbering them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2, 3, and 4 are the part that's the arch, and then 1 and 5 are kind of like the pillars on each side of that arch. Okay. So then there's notice on the images on the bottom that show you where the tibia meets the foot. So let's look again down at the bottom here on both sides. So there's the medial view of the foot, which is that bigger arch, and then the lateral view of the foot, which is that smaller arch. And let's notice where the tibia, which is that basically what you think of as your shin bone, where it meets the foot. You can see it on both sides. You see the other bone, the lesser bone right here, but we're going to worry about that one so much. But that main big tibia bone here is where the weight goes. And if you notice, that's not like, it's not in line with like the heel, is it? And it's not in line here either. It's kind of closer to the middle of both of those. So it allows you to having more even weight distribution on your feet between the arches. Okay, so these three arches form a long triangle, and the weight from your entire body should be distributed as evenly as possible on all three corners of each triangle, or all kind of like each pillar that are on the side of each arch. And so if each foot has 3 points where weight is distributed, then you have a total of 6 points for both feet. So to keep it simple, if someone weighs 150 pounds, divide that by 6, and you'll know how much weight needs to be distributed to each point. So for that person, 150 pounds divided by 6 is 25 pounds. So they'll want around 25 pounds on each heel. And if you can go back to the diagram, right here, the heel. And then 25 pounds on here, this side of the transverse arch, and also this side of the transverse arch. There's kind of a lot of, hopefully you can see where I'm pointing. So all these 3 points, you want the weight evenly distributed. So, 25 times 6, again, is 150 pounds. It's not going to be perfect, but this gives you an idea of how you want to distribute your weight. The whole idea is just to get an even weight distribution. So now that you have a better idea of the foot anatomy, let's identify where each arch is on our own feet. So I'm going to get a chair here, and we're going to have to shift around the cameras a little bit. Make sure, hopefully I get this chair in the right place. And so this is the actual exercise. we're gonna do each foot here. Okay, so I'll shift here, and we're gonna palpate each arch while identifying them. So let's start with that most obvious one, which is the medial longitudinal arch. Again, on the big toe side here, what we normally think of as the arch of the foot. Okay, you're just gonna palpate that and find out where the ends are. Here's like here, and then at the heel right there. Okay. Next, we'll go on the other side, the pinky toe side, and palpate that lateral longitudinal arch. You notice the arch is not as prominent, but it's still there, right? Still there. And then we'll go to that the transverse arch, which runs alongside with the toes, right? Again, it's not like as obvious as that medial one, but you can still feel it, and you can feel how like the bones that kind of run towards the bones that eventually become the big toe and the pinky toe are the ones that hold the weight. Okay, so you have the whole triangle here. All right, and then just quickly to go over the other foot, we'll do the same thing here. Wrong way. There we go. Okay, so...
You were going the right way.
Oh, I was?
Yeah.
There we go. Well, I was looking at the picture-in-picture. I was kind of getting out of it. So we'll do the medial longitudinal arch first here. It's the same thing. It should feel pretty much the same, but we'll just like to go over everything. The lateral longitudinal arch on this side, and then the transverse arch, and then we can kind of go through the whole triangle, this long triangle here. Okay. Put the chair over here. Next one we're going to be doing is foot placement. Get some of this stuff out of the way. So now that we know how to distribute our weight on our feet, we'll go through how those feet are to be positioned when playing the violin. So first we'll start with feet together, touching side by side. Right here, just like so. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so side by side. This is just a starting point, since it's not ideal for keeping balance. If you were to try to play like this, it's almost like, I don't know, your feet are so close together you can't really keep balance very easily. So not a good way to play, but it's a good starting point. We're gonna then pivot on the heels to make a V shape with the feet. And we can think V for violin or viola if you prefer. And from here, we'll step our right foot out around shoulder width, and there are two options for the direction of this step. We can step the right foot directly to our right, shoulder width apart, or we could step it shoulder width apart and slightly back. So either way, it's still the right foot that's being stepped out, and it's still shoulder width apart, but it's whether you're stepping side to side or to the back. You can try both ways and see which is most comfortable for you, or you can get comfortable with both stances and have both as an option in your playing. Okay, so that pretty much takes care of that exercise. As you're doing that, I want you to keep thinking about how the weight is distributed on all 3 points of your feet. So that first thing that we did was so you can use it in your stance exercise, okay? So everything that we're doing, each exercise, we want to remember all the things from the previous exercise and use them all together, because when we're standing, it involves multiple parts of our body, not just only the feet or only, we have to be thinking of it all kind of at once and checking through how we're standing. Okay, so the next exercise is knee release. So we're going up to the knees, okay? This exercise uses a similar concept as the bow release exercise we did in the bow series. We'll release counting from a level 10 down to 0. So 10 being the purposefully incorrect way of tightening the muscles around the knees. These muscles here around the knees. And it's kind of going to be like, when they say, not to lock your knees. Well, that's kind of what we're going to be doing purposefully for the purposes of releasing it. Okay, so we don't want to be getting in the habit of that or staying like that for too long. But we do want to have some contrast so you can know, when it feels correct and when it feels incorrect. So we're going down from 10 to 0, level 10 to 0, and we're going to count down slowly to soften and release those muscles until you have 0 engagement from those muscles and the bones are simply stacked and balanced on top of each other. So like the bow release exercise, there's not too much to see on the video for this one. It's kind of hard to really show this on the camera, but if you look closely, you might be able to see some release of tension in my knee area, but mostly follow along with the video and use your own senses to be aware of the total release of those muscles in your own body as we go through it. Okay, so first I'll show you maybe from this, we'll do this angle like this, and maybe you can see a little bit. So we're gonna kind of tense those muscles around the knees, and we're gonna say that's a level 10, and we're gonna release it. 9, 8, 7, soften the muscles. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And I think I was a little bit too tense even when I was on 1, because I did a lot between 1 and 0 there. And so 0, I want just to balance the bones and not to try to hold them with my muscles, okay? And as we're doing that, we can still think about the feet and how the weight is distributed in those same arches like we have talked about. Okay, so I'll show you again from this angle here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Again, you may not pick up on it. It might be really hard to actually see it happening. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Right there. Okay. So that's pretty much it for knee release. Next is core balance. So to explain by what we mean by core balance, let's take again a look at some of the diagrams. And first we'll take a look at the spine itself, okay? So let's go over here and take a look at that. It's okay. So we'll get this working. John will get the cameras, and there we go. Okay. And maybe take that other thing off because there's no way I can. Okay. So we're on to the next one here.
Let's do it with your finger.
Oh, there. Oh, you know what? Here's another thing real quick. Let's go back to this. before we move on to core balance, I just wanted to, I forgot to show you this one diagram here. This is all the right foot. And so this kind of goes back to the three arches in the foot. So these are all the right foot. Okay, so this is not like left and right or anything like that. Same foot, 3 different diagrams. So this is normal here. And there's also a pronation and supination that we've talked about with the hand. We don't ever want this. We use this in our arms. We don't ever want this in the feet. If you are balancing on all 3 points well, you're not going to really end up with this, because like if you have this pronation on the right foot, you're kind of leaning more towards the toe side here. And so again, you're going to be more on this part, or the medial longitudinal arch, and less on the longitudinal arch. So it's going to be unbalanced, right? And if you look at the supinated, over supinated right foot, you're leaning on kind of more the pinky toe side of the foot, and that's also not good, because again, that's one of the 3 points that you're not having distribute your weight. So I definitely wanted to take a look at this one too. So hopefully you can see, if all 3 points are evenly balanced, you're going to end up with this normal foot position here. Okay, so some things that that we don't really pay attention to in normal walking, but I think it's good and actually helps, not just with playing the violin, but just in your normal day-to-day, if you find yourself doing any kind of these things that are not even and not balanced. Okay, so let's take a look at now the spine, and we're back to core balance here. So the part of the spine responsible for weight bearing is the part that we can't really feel when we feel the spine along our backs here. Okay, so we think about, where's the spine? Oh, it's right here. That's the inner part of the spine, and the part that is responsible for taking the weight is this inner part of the spine here. Really all of this. And the part that we feel is this outer part right there. And that's where we feel in our backs. And that's only for housing and protecting the spinal cord. We don't want to distribute any weight on that part of the spine. It's not what it's meant for. But if you look at the other side, you'll see that those vertebrae are stacked and padded. So that's a good place for the weight to be distributed, right? But we don't really always think about this part of the spine, because we kind of think about more what we can feel along our backs. So to give more context to where this bigger weight-bearing part of the spine is located in our bodies, let's look at a full skeleton. And maybe before we do that, we can look also on these other ones here. This is kind of a front view right here. Again, that weight-bearing part is in the middle of your body, in the front there. And then here's the back view of the spine, just to kind of give some, to give some context again. But again, this doesn't have those pads in between, right? So this is not where we want to put our weight. Okay. So we'll take a look at the full skeleton, and that is to give a little bit more context, even more so. So can we switch to that? Again, I want you to look at the skeleton on the right, and the arm's a little bit in the way here, but you can see that front part of the spine there. And it goes in the back here. It goes kind of back to, of course, make room for your organs and all that. And then it comes back around again here. So, but we want to really pay attention to this part. And if you notice, it's right in the middle. That's, sorry, 1 second here. Oh yeah, it's located in the center of the body. So notice how it's directly in line with the knee, and also where the tibia meets the foot here, like we've talked about already. So notice all these things already are in one line, okay? if you look from the front, you can see that it's here, and then it's kind of going out. The weight is going out the pelvis to the legs here, and then down again, everything following to the knee, how that's stacked here, and then down into the foot. So so far that's where the weight is going. So notice that also how the part of the spine we feel on our backs is not significant for the purposes of weight and balance. Okay, so for the exercise itself, we'll first locate the core of the spine by placing our thumbs on the top side of each pelvis bone. Okay, and if we want to look one more time at that diagram, we can see if I can erase some of this. How did I do that?
If you want to do, like I said, only partial.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so at the top of the pelvis, again, the arm's kind of in the way. That's where we're going to put our thumbs right there. And that, pretty much puts us in the place where that center part of the spine is there. Again, that arm is in the way. Okay, so let's just kind of look at me now. So here's where I can feel the top of the pelvis bone. And if I can imagine if those thumbs were to go all the way through the body and touch, that's where the core of the spine is. And so for the exercise, we'll walk here. We'll walk forward and back, okay? And we're going to focus all our weight to that core. And as we do this, release any tension in your back, allowing the core to stay upright by balance and not by muscle tension. So I'm going to do this again, focusing all the weight to the core and release tension in your back, especially your lower back, allowing that core to stay upright by balance and not by muscle tension. Okay, so we're completely released. And maybe think of the core as like rocks, like I said, rocks being stacked. And there's no muscles needed for that. So after coming back to the original spot, release any remaining muscles in the back, and then check your knees to see if that they're at a zero level of tension, and that the weight is being sent down your shin or your tibia bones and distributed to all 6 ends of the foot arches. There's, again, a lot to think about here. That's why I wanted to go step by step so you can start getting an understanding of all this. Okay, we'll do it one more time. So we'll go walk forward, walk back, and distribute your weight onto your core, and then down through your pelvis, through your legs, onto your knees. Knees at 0, right? And through the tibia, down and distributed to all 6 points of the foot, of the feet. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on now. And the next one, we're going to use just the regular camera, the full view on me. And this is going to be shoulder positioning. Here, let me get this out of the way now. So this exercise is especially important for maintaining balance while having the instrument in position. So our shoulders are very important, right? So first, let's take a look at what a shoulder actually is in terms of bones. So I think in the future we'll get a longer connection for this for this surface here. Oh, you know what? Actually, you have the John. You have the diagram of the arm. So it's the arm and the collarbone and the shoulder blade.
Okay. Give me 1 second here.
It's okay. It has the arm and the collarbone and the shoulder blade. It's the other one, I think.
Okay.
You know, I think I gave you the wrong order on that.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right, there you go.
Okay, here we go. So in this diagram, you can see that the shoulder what we call the shoulder is really composed of 3 bones only: the collarbone, the humerus, and the shoulder blade. Okay, so if you just look at the very top of that diagram, you can see that shoulder blade is kind of that big blade in the back, right? And the collarbone is in front of it, kind of looks like a sideways S or something. And then the humerus, which is the top arm bone. And so you see just those 3 bones. That's what your shoulder is made of in terms of bones, right? So with that in mind, the shoulders have a lot of freedom to move about, right? And the only place of connection these bones have really to the rest of the body is at the very end of the collarbone, which ends at the sternum here, which is at the middle of the chest, right? So the shoulder blade's not really connected. This part of the collarbone is not connected, only here. And then if I didn't have my skin and everything else, that arm would just kind of like flop up. And so there's no connection there to the rib cage or anything like that. So let's now again look at the whole skeleton. We can go back to the tablet here, the whole skeleton, to get some context of where the shoulders hang naturally, and then we'll do the exercise. So if we see the right here, that's about where the top of the arm bone is here. If you notice, that's kind of in line with where the front part of the spine is. You know, not perfectly, but it's, you know, pretty much in line with a lot of the rest of the stuff here, slightly back. If you look here where they are right there, you know, they're not hunched up like this. They're not pulled down like that. They're, you know, straight across here. And so, so to make sure that we're not pulling the shoulders out of line, you know, using the muscles, we'll first raise the shoulders towards the ceiling like this. So we'll use our muscles again purposely to take them out of a natural position. And then we're going to push them down, again, push them down towards the floor, lower than they should hang. And then we'll raise them up again toward the ceiling again. And then we'll release. And then be careful. So release until you don't feel any more muscles working. We don't want to start pushing them down again, but until we can just feel that we're not using any muscles, either to raise them up or to push them down. Okay, so that's the first thing that we do in the exercise. Next, we're going to, we have a good height for the shoulders now. We're going to pull the shoulders back through space like this. We can even think just, you know, we're pulling our arms back through space. And then we're going to push them forward through space like this. And then we're going to push them again back through space like that. And then we're going to release again until we don't feel any more muscles working. And so that gives us a good depth for the shoulders. We had a good height, and now we have a good depth. And again, as you're releasing them forward, make sure that you're not using those same muscles to keep pulling them forward. And so we have a good height now and a good depth for the shoulders. So that's pretty much for that exercise, that the shoulder positioning. All this stuff, again, is really important once we actually put the violin on in upcoming videos. Okay, so the next exercise takes a little detour from stance and balance. It uses the arm, the left arm a little bit, and it's called Pronate, Supinate, and Bend. Pronate, Supinate, Bend. The title mostly explains itself. To review the terms pronate and supinate, let's just take a look at the other diagram that we had up there earlier. And if you've gone through the bowing series, you'll hopefully already know this pretty well. But let's take a look at it anyway. So this is the one with the pronate and supinate in the hand. And give a second, it's okay. For John to not. This is the opposite. This is the other one.
Oh, it's the wrong one again.
Yeah, there's one that has actually says pronate and supinate, I think.
All right, got it. They put the wrong one in. You can go on the side of the picture. Oh, no, you can't.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. So this is, you know, to the hand that has the palm down. the one on the left side, that is the hand in the arm in a prone position for the forearm, and notice that the radius, which ends at the thumb side of the hand, that crosses over the ulna, so they're crossed there. That's the most kind of more natural position. And then the arm on the right, or the hand with the palm side up, is in a supine position. And the radius and the ulna, if you notice there, they're side by side, so they're parallel with each other. Okay, so that's just a review. We're going to start with the left hand in a prone position. Then we're going to supinate this way, like we did before with the right hand. And then we're going to bend as if you're going to hold a violin. Okay, so again, pronate, supinate, bend as if you're going to hold a violin. If you just kind of bend, like you end up probably hitting your face. But we're going to try to just bend as if like there's a pretend violin there. So pronate, supinate, bend. And so this exercise is a really good way to learn how to get your fingers in line with the strings with no strain in the arm. Sometimes students have trouble and they try to strain their arms to get the fingers in line with the strings. But this is showing you how easy it is to not really have to strain here. Okay, so you'll see that one on the video. Pretty simple. Again, pronate, supinate, bend. All right, and that brings us to the last exercise of today. And this last exercise is called AO turns. And so I'll explain what that means in a second. So this finishes the work that we've been doing on balanced standing. So AO is short for atlanto-occipital, and that describes the joint where the spine meets the skull. Okay, so we've gone from the feet all the way up to the shoulders, and now where the spine meets the skull. And so first we'll look at a diagram of the atlas, which is the top vertebrae of the spine. And so we're going to go back to the tablet here. And here we go. So this one here is this where it says C2 axis. This is the last, this is like part of the spine before the atlas. Okay, so the last, I guess the last vertebrae before the atlas. And so what we're trying to really focus on here is how the atlas fits on top here of that axis, okay? And that's the very, very top of your spine. That's the takeaway here. This is the very, very top portion of the spine. I could maybe, if I go back, why don't we take a look again at the spine itself. You can kind of see where that atlas is right there. You can kind of see how it goes out on both sides. Okay, so okay, so that's the atlas, very top of the spine. And next we'll look at the part of the skull that is called the occipital bone. And so we'll go to the next diagram here. And so this in purple is showing where the occipital bone is. And so I guess we kind of have to scroll a little bit. So this is the bottom view of the skull. And so you can see where that occipital bone goes all the way like to the very middle of the head, right? And you know, you can see here, this is where the teeth are, the top teeth. And yeah, so this right here. I don't know if you can see where I'm circling.
Yeah, you have to
really?
Yeah,
okay. We had this set earlier and somehow it got off the setting. So you can see where I'm drawing there. So that is where the atlas, what we saw previously, that sits, that skull sits on top of the axis at that point right there where I circled. Okay. to see it, this is from the back view, so this is the back of your head right here. And so that goes all the way up to the back of your head, but we're not really so concerned with that portion, more with how it comes underneath the head right here on this one, okay? So that's a big one to look at. You can see also from the side where it goes. Again, we're really concerned with this area right here. If you think about where that atlas is, it's there. And so this is where the connection is. Yeah. I think that's pretty clear, okay? Hopefully you're understanding all of that. And so one last thing to show you is the diagram of a person where that shows where those two connect. And so you can see that the spine goes pretty much in the middle of your head, or the middle of your neck at least, right there. And that's where the occipital bone is and the atlas. And like one's just sitting on top of the other and balancing on top there. And that's how your head's held up. Okay? So it's really important, because if you notice that when you have that located right, you'll see that it's kind of, right there in the middle of your ear. And when you turn your head, this side of the head is turning back and forth, as well as this side of the head. So they're both, turning back and forth like that. If you're thinking kind of like, like your back, then you might think of it like being here and just the front part of your head. But I think it's important to show where it's actually pivoting from here. And you can see both sides of the head are turning somewhat equally. Okay? So to do the exercise, all we're going to do really is just try to have our shoulders parallel to a wall that's in front of us. So for me, it's going to be the camera is going to be my wall. But you have a wall that you can stand maybe just a couple feet away from to make sure that your shoulders are parallel with the wall. And what we're going to do is we're going to think about that joint that we just looked at and studied on the diagrams. And we're going to try to make sure that the head turns back and forth, balanced on that joint. The skull is just sitting on the top of the spine, and we're just moving the head back and forth. And you can think about how the back part of your head is turning just as much as the front part of the head. Okay? One reason why I wanted you to have your shoulders parallel to a wall is that if you want to look this way, kind of maybe sometimes the natural thing is for our body to follow the head. That makes sense in general, but for violin playing, we don't want to do that kind of twisting. We want just to be able to turn the head side to side like this. And so having a wall in front of you will help you to notice, like, oh, am I actually turning my shoulders? Oh yeah, my shoulders kind of like is not parallel with the wall. It's kind of facing the wall now. Okay, so I better not do that. Whoops, I'm not parallel with the wall anymore. So we want to just only turn the head. Okay, so I'll show you from this angle here. And as you're doing this, every time you're doing one of these exercises, you can think about all the rest of your body and all the other points of balance that we had talked about. And so I'll show you from this angle here. How the head wants to turn. Okay, so one last thing I want to show you is again on the tablet here, something that we want to avoid, and this is something we want to avoid when we're playing violin in particular, because the tendency when you actually have the instrument in your possession, you might want to feel, and this is not for everybody, but I think a lot of people want to try to put their head out to kind of go onto the violin like this, okay? And if you can see from that diagram again, does that look comfortable or healthy? Not really, right? And if you notice, it's like all in orange there. So that kind of like, to me, it looks like, oh, this is kind of like, this is not good. This is going to cause some pain, and it really will. So let's look back at the other one, and again, notice how much different that is. And so that's now balanced. The head is balanced and in line with the rest of the body. And let's again compare it with this one. Very strained, right? You know, you might be able to get away playing the violin a little bit like that, but if you get in the habit of it and you start to get more advanced and practice more, that's going to really, that's going to cause some problems in the future, and some a lot of pain and some really bad stuff. So you want to make sure you want to avoid that. And so when we're turning again, we're going to be like this, and we don't want to extend out like this. Okay, we'll get more into the importance of that when we're actually doing this with the instrument. Okay, so this is all preliminary stuff for holding the instrument and for our left hand skills. Again, very important, not too hard, hopefully. And so going through the practice video every day, like we say here, press play every day. Press play every day. Hopefully that should be pretty enjoyable. It should be pretty easy this week, but definitely do it. This is going to be used in our subsequent videos, all this information, so you want to know it well. Okay, so that's it for today's training session. Let's see from John if we have any questions or anything for today. Okay.
But we have Angeli from San Diego. Say hi to her.
Okay, hi Angeli. Thank you for joining us. I know that some of our regulars have started school, and I know that some people said their school schedules are conflicting. So, but thank you for being able to join us, Angeli, and hi to all of those of you who are watching the replay of this.
And we have Calvin from New Jersey.
Oh, Calvin. Okay, good. Thanks for joining us again.
And then Christine from Orange County.
Okay, Christine, thank you for joining us too. So thank you all for being with us. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Okay, so again, follow the links below if you'd like to book an online private lesson with me or John. And if you find our content helpful, I'd like to remind you to subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified every time we release a new video, and like and share it with your friends. Join us again next week as we continue this series on the violin and on the left hand. And don't forget to follow through with your violin preparatory positions 10-minute practice video, and press play every day. And goodbye for now.